Good morning. We have a quorum, and it's the appointed time. Let's invite the administration to join us. On the 17th of November, the members have asked some questions, and the administration has responded to it. You will find the questions and answers on in LC paper CB bracket 3 to 214/14 to 15 bracket 01 and 02. Let's wait for the administration for the presentation. In the last meeting, we have almost asked all the questions. I believe that if there are no further questions, we can go into clause by clause. Last week, we have scheduled another meeting on the 19th, but there are 3 bills on the sitting on the 17th, and one of them is the paternity leave, and there will be CSAs. Well, Mr. Ray Chen and I have reached consensus that we can quickly go through the bill, and then there is no need for another meeting. But I don't know whether members would like to propose any CSA. Perhaps I will ask the Deputy Secretary to take us through paper 214/14 to 15 bracket 02. If there are no questions, we can go into clause by clause. Thank you. We have supplied the information in response to members' question. We don't have anything to add. Any follow-up questions? If not, who is to take us with a clause by clause? Ms. Lam? Thank you. We will look at the Chinese version. Well, clause 1 is the short title and commencement. This will come into operation on a date to be appointed by the Secretary for Food and Health by notice published in the Gazette in September. The LegCo asked us a question about the commencement date, whether there is a scheduled one. We replied to the legal advisor in October. We propose that when the bill is endorsed by the LegCo, we will first bring into operation provisions relating to elections, that is Section 28 bracket 1A. The SFH is empowered to make election regulations. This relates to subsidiary legislation. Once the subsidiary legislation is endorsed, we will organize an election, and then other provisions will come into operation in stages. This is to ensure that the new board will be formed without any problem. If there are no further questions, let's go into clause 2. Well, you say that it will be by Gazette. When do you think it will be? Well, it depends on progress. Maybe beginning of 2015 we can resume. Hopefully we can resume second reading. We're now working on the proposal in relation to elections. We are consulting the LegCo and the relevant panel. Hopefully in the second quarter we will be able to introduce the election regulations to the LegCo. If everything goes smoothly, then everything will be in order in the middle of the year, and we can start with preparing the elections, and hopefully the election will be completed in the third quarter. the new board will be formed before the end of 2015. You talk about some subsidiary legislations. They will be made by the Secretary. Once they have been made, are they going to come back to the LegCo? Yes. They will have to wait till the subsidiary legislation is endorsed. Perhaps after that day, the Secretary will publish a notice in the Gazette. When will you come back to us? The commencement notice itself is a subsidiary legislation. The practice is negative vetting. So if there are no concern on the part of members, so first you would deal with the elections. Well, procedure-wise, you will have to endorse the bill, and then there will be a notice in the Gazette about the commencement of Section 28. Then the Secretary for FH can make election regulations, which itself is a sub-leg. The sub-leg has to be introduced to the Legislative Council. If need be, a subcommittee may be formed. When the subsidiary legislation is endorsed, well then some other provisions related to election in the principal legislation may have to come into operation, and we will publish another notice. So the earliest is end of 2015. But still, that may not be met because the election provisions may have to go through a lot of questions. I think we will be very happy if it can be done before the end of 2015. We endeavor to do that. Thank you. I was going into Clause 2. This is a technical amendment. Sorry. Last time I asked some questions. Have they answered in writing? There were two papers. CB bracket 3214/14 to 15, bracket 01 and 02. I can't find it. So I would like to ask. Last time I wanted to know that, well, all current board members are appointed. You now want to add 9 more. 6 of them will have to be elected by the professions. So why not all 9 of them? Why only 6? What are the merits?
We have to understand why they are being elected in order to better know about the function of the board. Chairman, the logic in introducing more elected members is that we consider the development of the trade. We took reference from the practice of other professional bodies, and by introducing more elected members, we can encourage members to look at the issue from more angles. And today we have more than 700 registered veterinary surgeons. And as we considered, we also considered this number, and we have received a lot of comments, and the general consensus is that it's time for us to introduce an election mechanism for the board, and under such circumstances, we decided to introduce this practice. Thank you, Chairman. Dr. Ann Chang. Chairman, I think he didn't answer my question. You said we are having more veterinary surgeons now, so we have 19 members in total, and the number of elected members has increased from 6 to 9 in order to allow more people to participate. And you said that it can the reason is that we have more veterinary surgeons and we need more people in this board. But my question is, for veterinary surgeons chosen by election, they must safeguard the interests of vets. And my concern is that we will see similar problems at the Medicine Council. And would it be even harder for vets to obtain licenses in the future? And will there be an imbalance in supply and demand? And as such, people will have to pay more when they take their cats or dogs to the vets. It's already very expensive. If you take your dog to the vet, you have to pay $500 or $600 already, even for minor symptoms like flu. And will the prices go up even further in the future? A lot of families have pets nowadays. They keep pets for company. But given the expensive fees for vets, they might not be able to afford it. And they might not be able to afford vets even if their pets fall sick, or even they have to let them, leave them to die. And if the VSB members are going to be elected in the future, they will most certainly try to protect the interests of the vets. And this is perfectly understandable. But the problem is you are going to compromise the services provided to pet owners all over Hong Kong. So this is my major concern. We have to gauge the interests. I understand that some countries have introduced a similar election system, but it doesn't mean that it's the best way to do it in Hong Kong. You have to prove that this is an effective measure. So what are the benefits of this system, of an election system? So my question for the government is, what are the governments of this approach? Please be frank, and you should let us know what your thought is. Dr. Chang, they have responded quite a number of times, but they didn't provide a great answer. They did give an answer, even if this might not be the answer you want to hear. My question wasn't about whether an election system is necessary. Dr. Chang, I don't want to go into that. What you said just now is that, gave me the impression that an election system will be biased towards the vet trade. Well, of course, I was elected, so of course I have to protect everyone's interests. So do you mean that no members should be elected and everyone should be appointed? All the members should be appointed by the government? We have discussed this bill a lot of times, but unfortunately not all the members were in attendance in the meetings. I had asked in previous meetings whether members have any more questions to ask. And having went through the government papers, we decided to enter the clause by clause since there were no objections. So it's not the time now to ask the government how many members should be elected and so on and so forth. And you can propose amendments if you wish. Members can have different views. And I might want to increase the number of non-vet members. So I agree with some of your points. But the point is, we have entered the clause-by-clause examination stage. Chairman, I've been here 3 times. In the first meeting, some members raised the issue of expensive vet fees, and during the last meeting, I heard a lot of comments, and I also raised my questions. But even till now, even if the government has given us an answer, it's not clear. It's still ambiguous. So we can have amendments. I really want to support the government. I support the police too, and I have my blue ribbon every day. But you must give us substantial grounds. You must justify. Otherwise, I have no choice but to propose amendments. So I think we should be very clear with our principles. If you can't make it clear, I have to guarantee the interests of the public. I have to make sure that pet owners can take their dogs or cats to the vets if they fall sick, and they won't have to pay excessive fees for that. And currently, there are no concessions for pet owners whatsoever. To be honest, I don't know what's the best way to solve this problem, but at least you shouldn't introduce even more elected members who would only protect their own interests. So in effect, only rich people are able to keep pets, and the grassroots are not able to take care of their dogs and cats. You are repeating yourself, Dr. Chang. Perhaps I'll give the floor to the government. Chairman, I understand that we've entered the clause by clause. But that said, members are still allowed to give their views if any amendments are needed. I support the administration in amending the mode of registration for the board, and I understand that the average processing time for each complaint is 18 months, and I think the administration has already mentioned why you cannot introduce more non-vet members, but I hope you can give more. And with regards to the portfolio of the members, I would also propose introducing more non-vet members. Mr. Ray Chan. Dr. Chang, please let him continue. We have entered the clause by clause already, but since you've been so nice, and we can go back to the discussion stage. So I'm wondering if you can grant me the same right for the FC meeting. I believe that the chairman will give us time to discuss when amendments are filed by members. I think by the time Christmas comes around, maybe we'll still be in discussions. Chairman, we understand Dr. Ann Chang's concerns, so if you allow me, I'd like to elaborate more. And as you can see from the papers we shared with members, we understand that members and the public as well as vets have different opinion of the issue, so we are trying to balance everyone's interests. And as Mr. Wong said, the introduction of elected members serves to increase the to enhance the representation of the board. This way, more people can participate and in a deeper manner, and we can also enhance the recognition of the board as such. At the same time, we understand that a lot of vets specialize in small animals. They are private practitioners, and as we mentioned during the last meeting, vets cover a lot of aspects. Some take care of small animals, some take care of exotic species, some zoo animals, some work for public bodies, race horses, etc. And as such, they have different fields of expertise. So the administration is trying to enhance the representation of the board. So as we review our legislation, we have retained 6 appointed members as well as introduced 6 elected members. And as for the interests of pet owners, please don't forget that we do have 6 members who are not vets, who don't belong to the vet industry. So the ratio is about 1/3 in order to maintain the interests. And of course, we will have a chairman. And as you can see from the papers we shared during the last meeting, we have elaborated the details. And since the board was formed in 1997, the chairman could be a vet or someone who doesn't belong to the industry. But our normal practice is that the government would appoint a non-vet as the chairman of this board in order to balance the interests of everybody. So after the reform, we will have 19 members, and we strive to balance the interests of everybody, including the public. And with regards to vet fees, as we mentioned last time, according to our code of practice, vets cannot charge excessive fees, or it will be a case of professional misconducts. And for serious breaches, it could be a case of administrative misconducts, and they might face penalties.
Dr. Sid, thank you. Thank you for the question. Just now you mentioned about the ratio. Some are elected. In the past 2 decades, we've been talking to local vets. They would like some of the members to be elected, to represent them, to be their voice, so that they will have a say in their future development and in the formulation of regulations and rules. That's why some members are elected. And most of our vets are trained overseas. Overseas practice have been taken into reference, say for example US, Europe and Australia. Because Hong Kong is an international city, they would like to follow the practice overseas for some of the members to be elected among themselves. If we look at UK and the US, some of the members are elected, but the charges are not exorbitant. And we see that, well, the number of registered veterinary surgeons will affect the price or the charges. The more vets, then the more competitive the charges. Charges in Hong Kong are not high compared to other countries, and in some cases the charges here are cheap. We're talking about high rental, we're talking about importing medicine. If the charges are too low, as reflected by the sector, there is no room for them to survive, and they will not be able to provide quality service to pets. Let's not continue with this. We have started clause by clause. Maybe when we reach that clause, you will ask the questions. And stop here, please. Well, just now, the administration talks about appointed vets, because vets are still with different specialties. So out of the 9, 6 will be elected, and there's, well, is it the case that 7 of them will be from different, will be of different specialties? I will not let you ask endless questions. We have started clause by clause. You will have to be short. After your question has been answered, I'm not allow you to ask any more questions. If you want to ask further questions, you will have to wait till the end of clause by clause. So I can ask questions at the end of clause by clause. Make it clear, please. I've asked you if you wanted to ask questions. You can talk about it in CSAs. You shouldn't ask questions on each and every provisions. Don't shout at me. I'm not shouting at you because you interrupted me. That's why I have to raise my voice. Mr. Wong, when it comes to appointment, the appointed vets come from different specialties. Say, for example, from the public sector, those that are more familiar with horses, or maybe toy pets, those that are responsible for caring of cats and dogs. Let's go back to clause by clause, Ms. Lam. Thank you. Clause 3 is to amend Section 2, interpretation. The first subclause is to amend under Section 2, definition of inquiry committee. This is a technical amendment because in Section 18 or Clause 18 there are some changes. And subclause 2 is to repeal the definition of chairman. Well, in the past, the practice was to use the word chairman, and now the practice is to use chairperson, and the definition has changed a little bit. Subclause 3 is to amend also Section 2. A number of new definitions have been added. The first one is chairman, because in Chinese the order is in accordance with the number of strokes. This is in accordance with Section 3A bracket 1A or 3C bracket 2. The chairperson of the board appointed under these sections, and I will go into sections 3A, 1A and 3C2 later. The next one is qualified candidate. There will be 6 additional members elected in the board. This is to facilitate drafting. Member. We specify here that in relation to the board means the chairperson, an appointed member, or an elected member. In addition, a new definition is the secretary, which means the Secretary for Food and Health. The next one is the Preliminary Investigation Committee. The current PIC is formed in accordance with the regulations of the disciplinary sections, but we would like to put it here to specify the functions and investigative powers of the PIC. The next definition is appoint. Includes reappoint. In a bill, which is also the current practice, the appointed members, including the chairperson, may be reappointed at the end of their term. We would like to make it clear to enhance clarity. Next is appointed member. There will be two different types of members, appointed member and elected members. So we might like to make it clear that there is a type of member that are appointed members. The next one is assessor. In the discussion, we have talked about the addition of a panel of assessors. Assessors may be appointed to sit in the PIC or the actual investigation committee. Next one is layperson. This is to facilitate drafting. It means a person who is neither a registered veterinary surgeon nor a medical and health professional. They represent the interests of users of veterinary service. Next is elected member, which means a member of the board referred to in section 3A bracket 1 bracket C. Next one is election. Election means the election regulation made by the S4FH under section 28 bracket 1, which include by-election as well. The next one is election regulation, which means the regulations made by the secretary under section 28 1A. The last one is medical and health professional. Apart from RVS, pharmacists or medical practitioners practicing in Hong Kong can be appointed into the board, and we would like to add dentists. And as a result, we add this new definition of medical and health professional, which includes dentists. Although pharmacists, are they equal to anesthetists? No. Are they included? Anesthetists? Well, they are actually medical practitioners, doctors, and then they will pursue this specialty. So anesthetists themselves are doctors, yes. So they can be appointed, yes. Ms. Chang, can I ask questions? You can only ask what was just talked about. Well, the appointment of pharmacists or anesthetists. So one pharmacist and one anesthetist. So it's out of this group, one. So for the anesthetist, well, do you differentiate those that are working on human beings from those that are working on animals? But here we refer to those that deal with human beings. Let me explain. Well, doctors treat people, and there is anesthetists. And for animal medicine, there is also the specialty of anesthetists. And they will also divide into different disciplines. Say, for example, those that specialize in horses and those that specialize in small animals. So when we talk about anesthetists, we talk about doctors. And for vets, then we will specify that they are anesthetists of veterinary medicine. And they will have to get a professional qualification overseas before they can claim to be an anesthetist. Well, there'll be 6 elected RVS, and then another group of laypersons. So for the appointed RVS, I know that there are different types or different vets working in different disciplines or different areas. Well, I don't know this terminology. Do you refer to vets that treat animals working in clinics? Let me explain. There are 90 members. 6 of them, well, actually 12 of them, are specified to be RVS, Registered Veterinary Service. So they have got the qualification of veterinary medicine, working on different areas. Say, for example, neural system on small animals, marine mammals, say, for example, whales, horses. We're talking about the 12 RVS. 6 non-RVS. These 6 people cannot be RVS. And out of these 6, one of them has to come from the medical and health profession. Our consideration is that the board can also have members from other medical and health sectors, so that in order to promote exchange of information, so that the experience can be injected into the board as well.
So in response to Dr. Zhang's question, for the 6 non-vet members, non-registered vet members, those 6 members cannot be registered veterinary surgeons. And for the chairman, he or she can be a registered VS, and it can also be someone else, Dr. N. Chang. For the appointed members, you said you would appoint non-vet members. What are your considerations when appointing these members? Ms. Lam, please. For non-vet members, under the legislation, these members represent the interests of people who would use vet services, and in general we are talking about pet owners. In the past, we've had members who run pet shops, and these are potential users of veterinary services. on to the next section, establishment of the board. Just now, the definitions I mentioned, our assistant legal counsel noticed in September that the definitions of chairman and appointed members mentioned section 3C2. We didn't, however, we didn't mention section 17B brackets 2 in the original definition, and after discussions with our legal counsel, we agree with the assistant legal counsel's view. And we should enhance the description of this item, and in order to ensure consistency, in Schedule 1, we would introduce sections 3D brackets 2 and 17B brackets 2. So these are rather technical amendments. And in the CAS stage, we will propose the amendments. So these amendments are rather technical in nature. So now we'll move on to Section 4. And in the term of the board, why is the term of this board 3 years instead of 2 years, which is the usual practice? We are talking about a maximum of 3 years. So we decided that each term should last 3 years. And we also recommend an election every 3 years. And we consider this appropriate. So and we also think that a longer term would mean that we won't have to carry out elections too regularly in order to minimize administrative costs. Chairman, a lot of government boards have 2-year terms, so why does this board recommend 3 years? And in the anti-sexual discrimination boards, we always mention she. So we use the female version of the Chinese character ta, and so why does the VSB have to have 3-year terms? Dr. Chang, as far as I know, the administration does not have any fixed stipulations that such boards must last 2 years instead of 3. So we would look at the specific needs of each board, and different bureaus would make a decision based on the need. I'm not very sure about your question, and you mentioned that other factors are being considered or something like that. And since the board was enacted in 1997, our practice has always been 3 years. I understand, Chairman. I've been involved in many different boards, and I've been involved in perhaps at least half the 8 universities in Hong Kong. And as far as I know, all the boards have 2-year terms. What other boards in Hong Kong have 3-year terms? I think this is not within our scope of discussion today. She cannot give an answer today, so perhaps she can answer your question later on. So let me finish, okay? I will give you time to respond. And according to the legislation says, the bill says the term of service cannot exceed 3 years. It doesn't mean that it cannot be 2 years. So it's only your personal view. If you want to amend that to 2 years, you can file a CSA. You can follow up later. I'm just trying to give my view. I just want to know why it has to be 3 years. It's a reasonable question. Chairman, I'm not trying to filibuster or launch a political challenge. We just want to understand the logic behind the legislation. I joined this committee. I don't sell pets. I keep a pet. As a matter of interest declaration, I just feel that we should clarify some of the legislation in Hong Kong, and we should ask appropriate questions. Just let me ask my questions. You should appreciate. You should appreciate that. I never stopped you from asking any questions. I just want to let you know that according to the bill, it says the maximum term is 3 years. It's just the maximum. The question you asked certainly cannot be answered today. Chairman, your job is to relay the question. I heard you. So the fact is she cannot answer your question today. I just want to know the logic behind this maximum term of 3 years. Why can't you reduce it to 2 years? Is it the same for other boards, Ms. Ellis-Mack? Perhaps we should allow the administration to respond to Dr. Chang's question later on. The term of the board can be less than 3 years, right? So can the administration provide more information on the previous terms? As far as we know, in the past 17 years, the term of appointment has always been 3 years. But as far as I know, it's only the maximum, and they're allowed to have 2 years if they want. The administration cannot answer your question now. How can they know which members have been on 2-year terms and which have been on 3-year terms? That's what I mean. So can you provide more information later? I agree with Ms. Mack's view. Thank you, Chairman. According to the bill, 3 years is only the maximum. But we will do some research later on other boards. But from my personal experience, for boards like the Women's Commission, the term is also 3 years. So the administration's understanding is that we don't have any set rules on whether our statutory boards have to have 2 or 3 year terms. And some boards even have 1 year terms. So it really depends on the needs. But as Mr. Wong said, we can do some research later on. We cannot possibly take out all the bureaus, but at least we can check the records of the Home Affairs Bureau and see what the normal practice is. And on the wordings of the bill, the maximum term is 3 years. Apart from the term of appointment, and for if certain members choose to quit prematurely, the period of appointment of such members would be less than 3 years. The VSB is very powerful. It's different from, say, the Youth Commission or Women's Commission, because this board is in charge of granting licenses to vets all over Hong Kong. So the reason I'm so concerned is that, well, I'm not concerned about the Women's Commission, Youth Commission, etc. The VSB is a very, very powerful authority. So that's why I'm so concerned with the period of appointment. And I'm also concerned with the job of the administration. So this is just one question I'd like to ask. Thank you, Chairman. The Medicine Council also has 3-year terms, according to the legislation. And we will do some research on other statutory bodies. So please don't mention the Medicine Council, because I'm sure everyone in Hong Kong will be very angry. Elected members of this board will be on 3-year terms. If elected members have 3-year terms, do board members have 3-year terms as well? So for consistency's sake, you can opt to stand for 2 years or 3 years, right? But in that case, we will have to carry out an election every 2 years. Well, it doesn't make a big difference, right? By this logic, if you use this logic, you can have 6-year terms, let's say. Well, if we have 3-year terms, then we only need to have 2 elections over a 6-year period. So let's continue. Thank you, Chairman. So on to Section 4 of the bill. We have it's about abolishing the existing Section 3 about the establishment of the board. And we will rewrite Section 3 with regards to the establishment of the board. For the new Section 3, we will clarify the name of the board. It would be the Veterinary Surgeons Board. And in Clause 2, we will clarify the powers of the board. And for Section 5, Dr. N. Chang, on the Veterinary Surgeons Registration Ordinance, is the entire ordinance stipulated by the administration? Is actually set up by LegCo.
You see that when it comes to some provisions related to the board, and it says that well, all the resolutions, decisions can be done by email. They don't have to be physically present. They don't have to all be there. So they can have a meeting overseas. They don't even have to be in Hong Kong. Is that right? I don't think that is the whole truth. Under existing provisions in the schedule, the procedure of the meetings are mentioned. You'll find it in Schedule 1. That is provisions in relation to members and the board, and also about the meeting procedure. What about decisions? And in relation to procedure of meetings, well, at the request of no less than 3 members, the Secretary shall give notice of a meeting of the board. And they also have to convene meetings, that is, to meet at least once every 12 months and as often as may be necessary to transact its business. Their usual practice is to have 3 meetings every year and add more meetings if necessary. What about decisions? Of course, they will deliberate or make decisions in a meeting, and the quorum is half of the number of members of the board. And you see that well, whether a member is in Hong Kong or outside Hong Kong, a resolution in writing may be done by circulation of papers, which will have the same effect as one passed in a meeting. But they will have to convene a meeting once every year at least. And in the past decade or so, we see that this is to provide convenience. If it's in between meetings, if they can they can arrive at a resolution by way of circulation, there is no need to arrange for a meeting. But we see in the past decade or so, if a member thinks that the matter dealt with by the resolution is significant, they can ask for it to be decided or discussed in a meeting. And from time to time it happened. So if it is a resolution done by circulation, it's related to maybe just general matters. But if it's related to registration, according to the registration regulation, they can only decide whether to approve a registration after they have met. And also in relation to disciplinary meetings, whether to set up an inquiry committee, they will have to be decided in a meeting. Please continue. Section 5. We will add new sections 3A to 3A. I will go into them one by one. First is 3A. This will stipulate the composition of the board. In Section 1, there is a chairperson to be appointed by the Secretary for Food and Health and 12 members to be appointed by the Secretary. And 6 members that are elected in an election, they are RVS. And in subsection 2, it's explained that of the 12 members appointed by the Secretary, 6 must be RVSs. 1, a medical and health professional, as I've explained before. They may be medical practitioner, pharmacists, or dentist. Lastly, 5 members that, in the opinion of the Secretary, represent the interests of persons using veterinary services. They are lay persons, and lay persons is specified to be non-RVS and non-medical and health professionals. Apart from the chairperson, who is not specified to be an RVS or not, the other 19 members, the ratio is 2 to 1. That is RVS to non-RVSs, which is the same ratio as the current composition. Mr. Ray Chan. So is there a quorum or the statutory required number of members? If someone left, do you have to fill that position? Ms. Lam. When I replied to Ms. Chang, in Schedule 1 is specified that the quorum is a minimum of half of the number of members. If there are 19, so the quorum is 9. If some members left or leaves, if some members leave, it happens from time to time, even in the legical. Then in Cap 1, General and Interpretation and General Clauses, if there is a vacancy, the quorum will not be affected. Say, for example, 1 leaves, there will be 18, so half of 18 is still 9. So the operation of the board will not be affected because there is a vacancy. I think Mr. Chen was asking about 2 things. So what about the time and limit to fill the vacancy, or within a certain period of time you will have to hold a by-election? When it comes to appointment, there is no specification because it's an administrative measure. If there is a vacancy in appointed members, the secretary will, as soon as possible, make another appointment to fill the vacancy. Shortly, we will talk about this. The member will be a member till the end of that term. And in 3E, you will know more about the terms, the term of office. Shall I jump to 3E now? Yes, please. If there is a vacancy, well, the unexpired term of office at the time the vacancy arises is more than 9 months, there is to be a by-election, because it will take at least 3 or 4 months to have a by-election. So if the unexpired term is too short, there is no need to spend time and effort to have a by-election. Maybe we'll just wait for the next election. We've weighed everything up. If the unexpired term is more than 9 months, there will be a by-election. Yes, we understand that. But the question asked by Mr. Chan is that whether there was a time frame in which you will have to have a by-election, and it's not said in 3E. You only said that an expired term of more than 9 months, you spend maybe 6 to 7 months in a by-election, so there will only be just 2 or 3 months left. So yes, a by-election will take place if the unexpired term is more than 9 months. So when will the by-election take place? You may spend 6 to 7 months on the by-election. It says here that the board must, as soon as practicable, hold a by-election. I can read, I see it. But it is not specified in the law that it has to be done within 3 months, 4 months. But for district councils elections or legislative elections, what is the time limit to hold a by-election? Do you know? I think there is reasonable expectation that a time frame should be put here for a by-election to take place. If that is the case for electrical or DCs, then I see no reason why it should be absent here. Ms. Chan, we're talking about composition of the board, and Ms. Max said that she would move an amendment about the ratio. Let me remind you, well, there will be 19 members. Decisions will be made by majority, so 10. And there are 14, 12 RVS, excluding the chairperson. Also 13 then. Well, the one from medical and health professional is related to that trade. They may be dentist, or they may be a medical practitioner. I think if it's a dentist, we were talking about someone, a dentist for animals. You said there are 5 that are lay persons. 5. So they may be pet shop owners. So all 19 are service providers. Do you understand? All 19 members are service providers.
So I
want you to make it clear. There are lots of animal welfare organizations, big or small, in Hong Kong. Some will collect stray dogs and cats. I think for the smaller ones, they may see it from the perspective of the public, because they will care more about animal welfare. It sends a chill down my spine. Well, it says very clearly in the law that 5 lay members are those that represent the interest of persons using vet services. It's not limited to just pet owners. Perhaps in the second reading or third reading, you'll ask the secretary to make it clear. Say, for example, the what type of bodies or organizations are to be appointed. For 2B, one member must be a medical and health professional. Is non-RVS medical and health professional, right? Just medical practitioners and dentists. So under 2B, they are medical and health professionals related to human beings, right? Yes, 2B refers to medical and health professional, and in the definition in the law, medical practitioners, pharmacists, and dentists. So not vets, because a dentist for animals is a vet. Yes. So the dentist of my cat is a vet. So it's not under this group. According to relevant legislation, unless you have the qualification, you cannot claim yourself to be a medical practitioner, a dentist, or a pharmacist. So by this group, we refer to those that deal with people, because other people cannot claim themselves to be this group.
Thank you, Chairman. Can you further clarify by saying that such medical and health professionals do not refer to vets? I think they have made it very clear already. 6 members are appointed, 6 are elected, and when you look at the definition of the medical and health professional, it only covers medical practitioners, pharmacists, and dentists. It cannot be a vet. So it refers to medical practitioners, pharmacists, or dentists, and by dentists, we are referring to human dentists, not dentists for animals, because animal dentists would fall under vets. And pharmacists for humans and pharmacists for animals are different. They fall into different categories. So they have made it very, very clear. Chairman, you said medical and health professionals cover 3 categories, but I saw that it covers 4 categories. And they're vets, lay persons, medical and health professionals, and people utilizing vet services. So the dentists and pharmacists might not necessarily be people who utilize vet services. I think there are some ambiguities, and we thank the administration for clarifying things. So if you can clarify it more by putting brackets around the definition, it will be even better, or you think it's already good enough? Out of those 6 non-vet members, one of them must be a medical and health professional, and I'm trying to explain what a medical and health professional is. I was just talking about the medical and health professional within those 6 non-vet members. I'm just trying to elaborate what is meant by a medical and health professional. Okay, so in other words, this medical and health professional has nothing to do with animals. This professional is not an animal doctor, right? Yes, as far as I know. An animal anesthetist is a vet, and an anesthetist refers to a human anesthetist. And an animal dentist is a vet, is not a dentist by our definition. I'm just trying to make it clear. You said you didn't hear it, so I will let Ms. Lam elaborate even further. Yes, what the chairman said was correct. For animal dentists and anesthetists, according to our definition under the VSB, they are veterinary surgeons. They are registered veterinary surgeons before they can carry out anesthesia or dental treatments for animals. And for medical practitioners, pharmacists, or dentists, we defined these three categories are regulated relevant legislations. We have very clear legislation to define who can be defined as practitioners, pharmacists, or dentists. Let's make it simple. You said one member must be a medical and health professional. So my question is, this member cannot be a person utilizing vet services, right? This person deals with humans. So in normal circumstances, this professional cannot provide vet services unless this person is also a registered vet at the same time. So this professional has no conflicts of interest with vets, right? Yes, in theory, but this professional might be a pet owner in theory. But we are talking about his or her professional capacity, so we are talking about different categories. A medical practitioner, pharmacist, or dentist refers to a practitioner who works on humans, not animals. I'm just trying to clarify things, Chairman. So on to Section 3B, notification of appointments and declaration of election results. We stipulate that as soon as practicable after the appointment of the chairperson or an appointed member, the secretary of the board is to arrange to be notified in the Gazette the appointment, the term of office of the chairperson or appointed member, as well as the commencement date of the term. And Clause 2, as soon as practicable after a qualified candidate is declared under the election regulation to be elected as an elected member in an election, the secretary is to arrange the declaration to be notified in the Gazette. And 3C, term of office of chairperson. I heard a lot of members have comments and questions, so we stipulate that the chairperson may be appointed for a term not exceeding 3 years. So according to our past practice, it's usually 3 years. And 2, if the office of the chairman becomes vacant under Section 2B, bracket 3 of Schedule 1 before the term of office expires, the Secretary for Food and Health can appoint a person to hold that office for the unexpired term. Dr. N. Chang. In the past, the Secretary has always been the Secretary appointed the chairperson. The Secretary appointed the chairman. Has the chairperson been a vet or a lay person? During the last meeting, we provided information of members who were not vets. In the past, in 3 of our previous terms, the chairperson were university professors. Excuse me, please don't speak at the same time. Yes, in 3 of the previous terms, the chairpersons had been university professors. In other words, the appointment period is 3 years, but they can be reappointed for another 3 years for a 6-year total, right? In the last 10 years or so, we had 5 different chairpersons, and the latest ones began in September 2013, and all of them we had university vice chancellors, deputy VCs, and they were all non-vets. They didn't teach any vet courses, right? Yes, they can be vets, right? So that's why that's what I'm trying to clarify. I understand your question. You don't want too many vets to be on this board. Yes, of course, because you have to protect the interests of the public. I understand perfectly. Well, as a party of as a member of the Liberal Party, yes. If the DAB also wants to safeguard the interests of the public. Please continue. Next, 3D, term of office of appointed members. And by the same token, an appointed member may be appointed for a term not exceeding 3 years. And similarly, if the office of an appointed member becomes vacant under Section 2C(3) of Schedule A before the term of office expires, the Secretary for Food and Health may appoint a person who is of the same category to hold that office for the unexpired term. It can be an RVS, it can be a medical professional, or it can be someone who, one of the 5 laypersons who represent the interests of people utilizing vet services. If the original chairman is a vet professional, the reappointed chairperson must also be a vet professional. So please get back to us on the question in relation to the term of service. So you can ask follow-up questions after they provide extra information. 3E, term of office of elected members. I think we should be more realistic on the term of service. So the term of service is set at 3 years. And the office will be in force from the first day of the month immediately following the date of the notification under the Gazette. Let's say if the Gazette was published on the 2nd of December, the office will be in force, in effect, from the 1st of January. So we have made this very clear. And under Clause 2, if the office of an elected member becomes vacant, Dr. N. Chang. The dates of appointment will depend on the dates of office, right? Yes. The appointment will wait until the office is formed, right? The date of appointment can be controlled by the administration. So once we fix an election date, the administration would plan the date of appointment accordingly. Do you mean that the term of the office and the term of appointment will be the same, right? Let's say if the election is done is finished in August, the office will be in effect from October, and if the office of an elected member becomes vacant, yes, you're right. This is what you plan for, right? Yes, this is something we can control. That's why we didn't put it in the legislation, Chairman. How much do you expect to spend for each election? Are you referring to the cost of the administration or the candidates? The government has to spend, and vets might or might not need to spend. There are rules in the election, right? I'm talking about election costs. Let's say if someone quits, the government has to spend a sum of public money to for the re-election. So who will be responsible for the costs? Would the cost be borne by the administration or the candidates? Yes, I believe the government has to bear the costs. So we are talking about public money. The government has its own reserves and public. Do you have any statistics on the election costs? As Mr. Chen said, the bill is not in force yet. We have to further discuss, and the election cost depends on the election approach or method. So I believe you will come back to us later on the cap of the election costs or budgets. Well, I think the election of vets it's another form of functional constituency. Well, this is inevitable. I understand where you're coming from, but as the biggest party, if you can convince the administration to do otherwise, then feel free. I think the DAB can do some lobbying. It's never too late if you are willing to do something. So today I'm just trying to state my views. I perfectly understand because you have repeated yourself quite a few times.
3E, 2B. That is, well, when there is a vacancy, there will be an by-election. We have weigh up the different factors. If the unexpired term is more than 9 months, then we will hold a by-election. That means if it's less than 9 months, we will leave the position vacant until the next election. Just now, a member said that we have not specified when the by-election should take place. Well, there is a flexibility here. It's as soon as practicable, hold a by-election under the election regulation to hold that office for the unexpired term. Mr. Chan? Well, it's the same comment. If something happens or if it's resignation, well, if it takes 5 months out of the 9 months to have a by-election, then actually the elected member will only have 3 months. It will not be very meaningful. So there are two parts to your question. The vacancy, how to deal with it, and how long it will take them to hold a by-election. That's why I asked them to take reference from the mechanism of DCs and ledge code. I don't think the vet board will take longer than DCs or ledge codes. There should be a time limit in which a by-election is to be held. We'll get back to you. Okay, next. Clause 6. Clause 6 is to amend Section 4, that is in relation to the board and its members, relevant provisions. In subclause 1, we will amend Section 4 to repeal provisions as respects the board and its members. We have to add assessors because we have added assessors in the bill, and in Schedule 1 there will be some amendments to apply the provisions to assessors. So the heading is to be made clear. Provisions under Section 4 apply to assessors too. This is a technical amendment. Next is Section 4, subsection 1 is to be repealed and is to be replaced with Schedule 1 has effect as respects the board, its members and assessors. And I'd like to mention the Chinese text. Well, we have changed the Chinese text. In English, Schedule 1 has effect as respects the board. The English version remains unchanged, but in the Chinese text, the original text is 適用 which applicable, and is now changed to 有效力 to have effects. And then Section 4.3 is to repeal shall apply and substitute it with applies. We always take the chance to substitute shall apply with applies. Well, that is in effect to take away the word shall. This is just a textual amendment. Next is Clause 7. This is in relation to the functions of the board. The first one, Clause 9 is in relation to qualifications for registration. The first one is to change the word shall to must. The second one is under Section 9.3. Under 9.3, it says that where the board has reasonable grounds to believe that the person is not competent to practice veterinary surgery, the board may refer the matter to an inquiry committee, which shall deal with it as if it were a complaint under Section 18(1). We will amend Section 18(1), so we have to change the reference to Section 17(d)(3). Next is Section 17 in relation to disciplinary offences. This is change it to 17 is to repeal subsections 3 and 4 and change it to 17 to the different area, that is in relation to arrangements after a complaint has been received by the secretary. We'll make it clear in the amendment that there will be a PIC and the procedure, the referrals procedure is streamlined. The matter will be referred by the PIC to the inquiry committee. So we will repeal subsections 3 and 4 and replace it with sections 17A to 17B. And I will go into details of them shortly. First, if there are no questions, 17A is a new section. 17A is in relation to the establishment and membership of panel of assessors. Subsection A says that the board is to establish a panel of assessors from whom members of a PIC or IC inquiry committee may be appointed. The panel is to consist of the following persons to be appointed by the board to the panel on the nomination of the director of AFC. A. No more than 12 registered veterinary surgeons. B. Not more than 6 other persons. If one or more than one person is appointed under the above group, then the person or at least one of the persons must be a medical and health professional, that is a medical practitioner, pharmacist or dentist. And if there are more than one person, then the other one must either be a lay then the other one will have to be a lay person. And if is a member of the board, then the person cannot be appointed to the panel. So the panel of assessors are not members of the board. Ms. Chang. The panel is formed by appointment by the they are appointed by the board on the nomination of the director. They are not board members. Then how come they have to be appointed by the board? Why not directly by the director of the AFC? I think the procedure is for the director to make nominations and for the board to endorse. And if the board disagrees, then they will have to give reasons, and then the director will have to make another nomination. This is better because at least their views are sought. Let me explain it further. The panel of assessors is to enhance the capacity of the board in the handling of complaints. So the board's work is to be done by the board. But based on experience, sometimes there are a lot of complaints about the conduct of vets, and if the board would like to speed up its work, we would like to give them the power to establish a panel of assessors to help. And then, if necessary, they may be appointed to the PIC or the IC to lighten the load of the board and to enhance their capacity in hearing cases. But if it's appointment made by the board and there are not more than 12 registered veterinary surgeons, and it's like they're just investigating into themselves. No, that is not the case. They just look into the cases. There will be provisions about the composition of or the formation of the PIC or the IC. There will be 3 persons in the IC or the PIC. They are either or they are 3 board members or 2 board members plus 1 assessor. We want to ensure that the statutory function rests with the board. But even when there are extra hands, there will be still 2 members in the IC or the PIC who are board members. If they can cope, there is no need to have an assessor. So the assessors is just an additional pool of manpower if necessary. There is another proposal. The PIC or the IC will consist of 3 members. 2 of them will be RVS, and the last one must not be an RVS. It can be either a medical, one from the medical and a health professional, or a lay person. So we keep the 2-to-1 RVS to non-RVS ratio. So the other combination is 2 board members plus an assessor. So when there are already 2 RVS who are board members, and if the board decides to engage an assessor in the PIC or IC, then the third one must be a lay person from the pool in order to meet the required ratio of 2 RVS to 1 non-RVS. Ms. Chang, there is a huge question mark on your face. But you have confused me. I've always thought that you want to put more vets in the board, but now you say that there is a pool, backup pool. They are assessors, but to me they are not backup, because if there is a panel of assessors, then, well, they will take up the work and then they will refer the work back to the board. So it's not the case that the board cannot handle the workload and then they will turn to the backup. So I don't understand. I heard the word backup. So it seems to be that if the board cannot handle the workload, then they will turn to the backup. Yes, that's the design.
Yes, they are for backup purposes, the assessors. When the board is in place, will you set up a group of assessors or a panel of assessors? You said there will be 12 people, and the ratio is 2-to-1. My main concern is that they have a lot of workload, but then maybe the board will still try to do everything because they don't trust the assessors, and as such, the progress of the inquiries might be compromised. From the existing provisions, I cannot identify the backup purpose of these assessors. Will the appointment period of the panel of assessors be the same? If it's the same, then I have some concerns, because after they are nominated by the director of AFC, the list should be vetted by the board, right? Yes, most of your points are valid. The idea is that these assessors are for backup purposes to assist with the work of the board. And these assessors must be people the board trusts. And as we can see from clause 17A brackets 2, these assessors are for backup purposes, so we have a cap on the number of people. It cannot be more than 12 RVSs and not more than 6 other persons. The ratio is in line with the ratio of VSB members. And for the PIC and IC, we maintain the ratio of 2:1. So in this pool of backup assessors, we try to maintain the same ratio. As I mentioned, these assessors are appointed by the board, and for the first term of the panel, we have to wait until the board is formed before the panel of assessors can be formed. And for the new term of the board, they can the board members can decide, and the director of AFC will make the nominations, and the board will decide which assessors to appoint. And I guess Dr. Chang will have this question, and she thought a 3-year term is too long for the board. You didn't, by the same token, you didn't mention anything about the appointment period of these assessors. I cannot find any. I cannot see any mention of the word backup under 17A. As far as I know, any assessments will be carried out by the assessors, right? I'll leave it to Ray Chan. I just want to know whether these assessors are for backup services, are for backup purposes, or are you going to use them no matter what? And under brackets 2, it says not more than 12 RVSs, and under 3A, it says the person or at least one of the persons must be a medical and health professional. You said the director of AFC will do the nomination, and these assessors will then be appointed by the board. And this panel of assessors mainly deals with complaints, right? Yes. So in this case, do we really need as many as 12 RVSs? They are your own people. Will you consider only appointing lay persons in this panel? And as you can see, even for very complicated criminal or criminal cases or financial crimes, the assessors are made of lay persons, because this is the spirit of justice. So why are most of these assessors vets? So your thinking is flawed. You said you are learning from other countries, but this is unfair. So how many members of this board, how many people here are vets? 2? We have 2 vets. Well, please excuse me. I'm not trying to accuse anyone. I'm just talking about the system. Well, due to interest declaration, I think vets shouldn't be here today at all. I understand where you're coming from, but since we are talking about vet qualifications, they still want to maintain the 2:1 ratio of 2 vets to 1 non-vets. And if you are saying that the vets would only protect their own interests, it's not very reasonable. No, this is not the case. When you look at the courts in Hong Kong for life sentences or other, or whenever they make major decisions, they are heard by jurists who are ordinary citizens. So are you saying that this is unfair? I'm not trying to discuss justice with you. We are talking about the professional capacity of the vets. Perhaps let's a vet explain it. These complaints are often to do with the prescriptions for dog, let's say, and dogs come in all kinds of species and varieties. So it really the kind of anesthetics required is different for different species of dogs. So if you are not a professional, not a vet professional, it is very difficult to make a professional judgment. So for the vets I know, they are very proud of their own expertise, and they would follow professional practices. If they give wrong prescriptions, they would make correct judgments. I understand this is this problem has been mentioned in the Medicine Council as well. As I said, for a lot of major social issues or professional cases, they are being judged by jurists, which are made of ordinary citizens. And as the judge, they would guide these jurists, and if necessary, we have open hearing sessions, and relevant people will be invited. Let's say if a cat died because of an anesthesia, then anesthesians would be invited. So you cannot underestimate the knowledge or capacity of ordinary people. And as you said, not all vets know everything. They might not necessarily know about anesthesia. Anesthesians come with all different types, and so for the sake of fairness and integrity, well, perhaps vets will try to protect each other. So why don't we let the public make the judgment? And they are not necessarily against all vets. So the point is, you should let them make the judgment. So the panel of assessors should not be made up of vets. You are just, you would try to protect yourself. It's unreasonable, Chairman. Well, I've been very reasonable. So for the administration, I don't think we can cover everything today. So perhaps you can address Dr. Chiang's question, and we'll follow up during the next meeting on the 19th of December. Because of the electrical meeting on the 17th, we might not be able to have the meeting on the 19th. So do members prefer to have the next meeting on the 5th or the 12th of January at 10:45 a.m.? Perhaps only us two will be here. The 5th or 12th of January, 10:45 a.m. I'm okay on the 5th. For the 12th, I have to get back to you later. What about Dr. Chiang? You mentioned the 5th of January, right? Yes, I will be free on the 5th. So let's meet at 10:45 on the 5th of January. Since Ms. Elsmack is gone, I will ask the Secretariat to remind her if we intend to carry out CSA, can we do it by the end of this month? So hopefully we can finish the clause by clause on the 5th of January. We can have more time to for further discussions. We should try our best. Otherwise, we can take care of the CSAs in another meeting. I just have a question on procedures. If we want to move amendments, the amendments won't be moved during this in this bills committee, right? As far as I know, if you have concurrent amendments to move, I'm not trying to draw the line. CSA will be carried out on the 19th, and they will be filed to the administration. If after reviewing the amendments, if the administration accepts them, then they would move these amendments, and there's nothing more we have to do. If the majority agrees that something can be done, then these amendments will be moved by the administration. It really depends on whether the administration accepts our proposals. If we move the amendments ourselves, we have to carry out voting, and it's not very easy to enforce them. But I believe that we can finish the clause by clause by the 5th of January. We'll try our best. I'm not saying that we must complete them next time. And the administration will also respond to your questions during the next meeting. Before we enter the clause by clause next time, we'll allow the administration to address your questions on questions such as the term of office, whether it's 2 years or 3 years, and if you have CSAs, we can also discuss them next time. We have a timetable for CSA. When it can be carried out after we've finished with the remaining work. And during the resumption of the second reading, we have to see whether the administration supports your amendments.
If you already know what you're doing, well, I mentioned the 19th of this month again because, well, starting from the 22nd or 23rd, you will start your holiday. If you give us your CSAs, then at least there is time for the administration to look through it. Then 12 will be better because we'll have more time. But I don't know whether Mr. Chan is available or not. If there are only 2 of us, then there won't be a quorum. If we can't finish it on the 5th, then we will find another day to have another meeting. So we'll meet again on the 5th of January, 10:45. Thank you. Well, the minimum amount of people is not answered. Well, that will be answered in writing. It's about the commencement date of the panel of assessment. Because the panel of assessors will have a term that is not specified. In 17B, it says that it's no more than 3 years. Ms. Chan, Ms. Mack, and Mr. Chan asked them questions. Well, think about it. Think about whether the panel of assessors should comprise of mostly vets. They may not be fair to pet owners. If there are no other questions, we'll meet again on the 5th. Thank you. Meeting adjourned.